Folks, Black Star Network is.
Hold no punches.
I'm real revolutionary right now.
Support this man, Black Media. He makes sure that our stories are told.
We have to keep this going.
The video looks phenomenal.
See, this difference between Black Star Network and black-owned media and something like CNN.
You can't be black-owned media and be scared.
It's time.
Bring your eyeballs home.
You dig?
Testing 1 2. I need you down. You're in camera line. You're in camera. Folks, today is Thursday, May 14th, 2026. Coming up on Roland Martin Unfiltered, streaming live on the Black Star Net. You have the number one ranked school by the state to get another school, and they are denied that I'm charged.
He's got breaks, he's right on time, and it's rolling.
For bass. Too much treble, I need more bass. Opening up with a wide shot. Opening up with wide. Folks, we are here at Cross Street AME Zion Church in Middletown, Connecticut. Glad to be here for this broadcast to talk about public education. So glad to see everybody out today. Appreciate it. Certainly appreciate it, and I'm certainly glad to be here, folks. Anyone knows me knows that education is hugely important, often emphasized. We talk about it on this show. It's always been paramount. My parents made it perfectly clear that education was the most important thing for their 5 kids. And when we talk about where we are now, we've seen how education has shifted in this country. It's not just the sole delivery system of public education. We see the advent of public schools, private schools, charter schools, online schools, magnet schools, home schools, you name it. My position has always been the same. If it works, I support it. But if it doesn't work, then we should not be continuing doing the same thing over and over and over again. And again, there were a number of people, African American, who said, why are you doing this? Why are you supporting this? And I said, my position is simple. If there's a system created that allows for us to be in control of a school system, and we control the curriculum, we control the hiring, we control contracts, then I absolutely want to be a part of that. As in a majority, we don't actually control the school system. We don't control the schools. We are, in essence, asking someone else for permission. And if we really are being honest, there are public schools in this country that are doing a disservice to African Americans. Now, it's clear. There are public schools that are doing a great job. And I've said point blank, is this here. You would not see an explosion in this country of parents demanding school choice if they were successful public schools. What parents are saying is, I can't wait for your 4 and 5 year or 10-year plan to kick in because my child will be out of that particular school system. And so over the last decade, I've traveled this country and have gone to Memphis and have gone to Friendship Public Charter School in D.C. You've got Gestalt in Memphis. I've gone to others as well, talking to educational leaders about how we take control of our education. And for a lot of people, that's been controversial. You've got black elected officials who, many of them largely funded by teachers' unions, that do not support charter schools. And I've made it perfectly clear, this is not about elected official. This is not about a teachers' union. It is not about anything but the education of children, specifically our children. And we know, based upon the data, that when our children do not get a quality education, especially K through 6, they're more than likely to have bad outcomes as adults. You travel anywhere in this country, and you go to any prison system in this country, you're guaranteed to have upwards of 90% of those folks in prisons who are functionally illiterate. That means that they will not be getting the right education. If you go to a lot of major cities, I remember when City College of Chicago, we're spending $40 million a year on tutorials. Now that was tutorials Chicago. That right there speaks to the crisis that they had in their school system. And we can see that salaries and their education involved in the criminal justice system. They're more likely to move on to go to college. If they don't go to college, still go on to other forms of education to be able to take care of their families. But if you have an awful education, the likelihood is you're going to be a ward of the state and have to be assistant in so many different ways. And so when we talk about this issue, it really should be number one in every black poll, in every black household. This is the issue that we should be demanding answers. Honest today with black kids and other children who are grossly unprepared for education. Our kids are coming to kindergarten and first grade not being able to speak basic words that should have been the case when they were 3 and 4 years old. We're having kids being sent to school with developmental problems, with behavioral problems, causing so many issues. They're impacting the education of the other kids. And so this is about having an honest conversation about what is happening in our community, but also specifically what's happening here when it comes to how you can be a top-ranked school, how you can go through a process and living in this so-called MAGA world where it's about merit, they claim, how you can rank number one and still be denied the opportunity to launch another school. So the next couple of hours, we're going to talk with education leaders and community leaders here about this very issue and how we can properly organize and mobilize our community to make it clear to those elected officials who are state representatives, state senators, who are education leaders, even the governor, that if you don't do right by us, then we will do what's necessary to take you out at the ballot box. So with that, let's kick things off with the founder of Capital Prep, Dr. Steve Perry. Put your hands together for Dr. Perry. All right. So if y'all can give me more bass, because black people, we do bass. There's way too much trouble. We'll talk about your lawsuit against the state. We'll get into that a little bit later. But let's talk about this idea when I talk about school choice is the black choice. And you and I have been on panels all around the country. We travel around the country. And it still is amazing to walk into rooms. And they could be all black rooms. And it's 80, 90% against until you start walking through the data. And they start hearing about schools. Because a lot of people, they assume their schools are great. Or at least good. Then when you start breaking down the data, then they go, oh, I didn't realize it was that bad. And then you start breaking down the historical data going back 5, 10, 15, 20, 30 years. And I've seen rooms completely flip after a 2-hour conversation. First of all, is the mic on? You got to turn the mic on. There we go.
I'm a rookie at this. So just beyond the doors of Cross Street AME Church is the housing project that I grew up in. And was in remedial classes all the way until high school. I never thought I was a smart person. And there were people in this community who believed in me and others like me and thought that we should be given an opportunity beyond our circumstances. There was no such thing as a charter school or a magnet school or anything of the sort. There were upward bound programs. That's the best that you could get. And for those of us who were given access to the upward bound programs, we were able to see that there was a world for us outside of poverty. You know, it's hard to know you're poor when everybody around you is poor, right? Everybody eats mayonnaise sandwiches, right?
I can't stand mayonnaise.
Yeah, well,
oh my God.
Oh
Lord.
Then you would have starved. So
at least make it mustard. Go ahead.
You got to listen. We would have got you a sugar sandwich. So what ended up happening was, as I've had the opportunity to go away to college and graduate school, I started to be in these places where I recognized that the people that were in those schools were not smarter than I was. They just spoke differently than I did. They may have conjugated verbs differently. They didn't think at a faster pace than me. And so when the opportunity presented itself to change the trajectory of some children's lives in Hartford by creating a school, we did that. A parent came to me at the end of our summer program, and she said, "Why is it that only rich kids get good schools?" Which I felt was an indictment. And I didn't have an answer. So we started our first school in Hartford 21 years ago. And for 21 years, we've sent 100% of our graduates on to four-year colleges every single year since we started that first school. So along the way, Roland, I was, while we were running schools in Hartford and I was living here in Middletown, and you and I were doing the CNN thing and the other stuff that we were doing, our presiding elder, Elder Moses Harville, who you'll have the opportunity to meet a little later, he pulled me aside as only he can. And he said, "Can I talk to you for a second?" It's really not a question, it's really a direction. So I said, "Yes, sir." And because that's what you say to him. And he said, "You run in these schools and all these other places, but you're from Middletown. And your family's in Middletown. So why don't you open a school in Middletown?" It's really not a question, it's more of a direction. So it took a number of years for that to happen, so we did just that. Because as you'll find out later, if you took the African-American children in Middletown and they were their own district, they'd be one of the lowest performing districts in the entire state of Connecticut. Even the poorest school systems, African-American children outperform the kids in this community. There is an actual academic apartheid underway, and it's real. And the only difference is that those kids in this community, like I was a child in this community, are led to believe that they're less intelligent than the other children because they're not giving access to the same exact resources that the white children are being given. This is not my opinion, it's just the truth. The data is the data. So what we did was we put forward an application for a charter school here in Middletown. And we were, out of 6 applicants, we were number 1. Which is not surprising because I brought some other number 1s with me here. Our Capital Prep Harbor School in Bridgeport is the number 1 high school in the state of Connecticut for college preparation, period.
So not, and just to clarify, not the number 1 charter school.
No. We're not, no, that's a...
Number 1 across the board.
Number 1 for every single public high school in the entire state of Connecticut, black, white, Asian, rich, poor, suburban, urban, rural. Anybody who runs a public high school, there are over 200 high schools in the state of Connecticut, you are looking at the number 1. And yes, it's all black and Latin, and yes, it's majority what they say poor, and many of them are from Bridgeport. But I bet you won't go against them in the classroom. I bet you won't. Let me say, I suggest you don't.
But let's stay there because what often happens is folks say, well, the reason we can't achieve what needs to be achieved because it's a question of money. And there are many places where they've thrown a lot of money at the problem, and what they've gotten back is massive failure.
Hot garbage. So I said that we're the number 1 high school in the state of Connecticut and have been for the past 3 years for college preparation, college and career preparation. We're also the lowest funded high school in the entire state.
So you get the lowest amount of money.
$11,525 a year. In Bridgeport, they get 18. In Middletown, they get 23.5. We get less than half of what they get, and we smoke them.
Why? How is that possible? What are you doing that others clearly are not doing?
I know it's impolite to say, but we just have a better school, fundamentally designed to produce a better result. What we did was we looked at what the wealthy, largely white private schools did. We literally replicated it down to its core. They had academic advisors. We got academic advisors. They had a two-sport requirement. We had a two-sport requirement. But the thing that they did that we found most compelling, and that really was, this is really what the difference was, when we went to visit the schools like Cheshire Academy, Choate, Watkinson, Loomis, and all those other schools that people are spending $60,000 for, not one child in that school was asked if they were going to college. It was assumed upon entry that they were going to college. If you ask any child here, to the youngest of these, if they're going to college, they might, if they would be inappropriate, they might look at you like, what do you, really? Don't ask me that question. Because the expectation has to be set. So we have a model that works better. And then in that model, we have people who just come to work. They work longer days. We tell our faculty, we call our teachers illuminators because we don't believe that they're teaching. We believe that they're lighting the way. So our illuminators work longer days, longer weeks, and longer years. So we have more time on task with people who are more willing to do it. And I will end this way. You mentioned the teachers union. One of many things that the teachers union does is it takes the emphasis off the product, which is the better educated child, and puts it on the employees. It makes it about employment, not about outcomes. And so much of what they do is designed to create an easier way for them to go. They talk about class size, but class size, as they talk about it, is not necessarily the indicator of a better school. Catholic schools are historically large classrooms. Colleges, you could have 700 students in a classroom. We looked at what worked. We focused explicitly on the needs of the children, and as such created an opportunity for the children to be able to have what it is they have, which is love. So the final part of it, we genuinely love our children. To a child, they know, even when we get at them, we genuinely love them as our own flesh and blood. So I remember Steve Harvey said something that I found to be powerful. He said that when his father passed away, that he recognized that the only man who would ever want him to do better than him had passed on. I submit to you, every single one of my colleagues wants every single one of our children to do better than they have. They want them to live better. And one of the best examples of that is this. When you look at many of our colleagues, I'm not just Capital Prep founder. I'm also a parent. Both of my sons went to Capital Prep. So when these other folks are running around here talking about my school, our school, no, they mean their job. They don't mean their school. This is for real, my school. This is for real.
But don't you also have an expectation for your parents?
So, if I could be frank with you, not really. Dr. King said that a school should be so good that you cannot tell who that child's parents are. Which means that our outcomes can't be bound by the fact that if their parents have taken calculus or college classes. Most of the children you see in Blazers have already taken college classes. So no, we don't have some sort of contract that we sign with our parents that says that you got to come to this many events. If they come, dope. If they don't, dope. We'll see them at graduation. It's cool. We'll take them. One of the things that we don't often realize, Roland, is even wealthy people really lean on schools. And the wealthiest of people will send their children to elite boarding schools.
Yep.
So we can't board them, but we keep them pretty late. Like, we do all we can. We keep them at least 6 days a week, and for as long as we can keep them. So I never want a child's future to be limited by the challenges of their parents. It just doesn't seem right. I love Middletown, and I genuinely love my hometown. People love their hometown, but I really dig Middletown, and I really do. And this community raised me to give back. It was clear. That's why when Pastor Harville pulled me aside, he knew who he was talking to because he part of the raising of me. So I can't say to these children, well, you got to have a moms who can come down, when I know that we've had and have children who are sleeping in cars. What am I going to, like, what kind of person would I be? So what we often hear from people in that group, from the union left, from the teachers union, is you cherry pick the children. That's one of the most racist things you could ever say. So there are only some black kids who can read? Come on, man. That's just the only way.
So when it comes to your schools, how does one get to attend?
All they have to do is write their name. Well, someone has to put their name, address, and grade that they're going to on, it's not even an application. They just have to put their name on it. They enter a lottery. They're randomly selected. And I wish it was some fancy lottery like they used to do back in the day when you and I were running around talking about this thing throughout the country. Like you stand in front of everybody and there's the balls in there and you do all that. No. It's really pretty unimpressive. You just press a button. The person who presses the button is here. He's like, yeah, you're still impressive. To me as a person, you're very impressive. But what you do is not that impressive on that day. So they just press a button. And it just orders the children. So to be very, very frank, there are 500 children right now in Bridgeport who want to get into Capital Prep. We cannot accept them.
So So in Bridgeport, how many students in that school?
So we have 786.
In the grade levels?
Kindergarten to 12th.
K through 12, 780 in Bridgeport. Mm-hmm. Your other schools?
So we have school in Harlem. It's about 200. We have school in the Bronx. And that one has about 600. I can see all the people looking at me mouthing the exact numbers because they're just those people. And then we're opening a new school in New Rochelle. It will be K to 12. And then our original school is in Hartford, and that's also a K to 12, pre-K to 12.
And in your school, all house one building.
So the school in Bridgeport, there are two separate facilities. There's one in a closed Catholic school, and there's one in a closed. You guys wouldn't have known this, but it's a closed mental health facility that we rehabbed to the best of our ability. And they will tell you that they do not have science labs. They will tell you they do not have a gym. They do not have fields. But they're the number one school for college preparation in the state of Connecticut. So
when we talk about, again, education development, and when you look at the demand, you said 500. We chatted before, I guess, a couple of years ago. I forgot which one of the schools. Y'all hadn't even picked a location, and you already had a waiting list. What that says is that the demand is there. What parents are saying is, I want that. I got this over here. I want that because that ain't working.
They do, but here's what happened here in Middletown. Middletown came out, like you see here. They're deep, right? They came out and they said, we want that. Over 500 people came to a gymnasium on a weeknight, a Tuesday. And they spoke their voices. And they said proudly what they wanted for their children. And in so doing, they created an opportunity for a school to be opened. And in the dark of the night, at 11:48 p.m., the state senator, who is deeply connected to the teachers union, and the teachers union president, who's also a state senator, decided that they were going to take the money out of the budget for the school. They had no meaningful opposition to the school, none at all, and even went so far as to try to get us, before doing that, they tried to get us removed from the Board of Education agenda, so they wouldn't even allow us to be voted upon. This is why what's important is because this person, his name is Matt Lesser, he is a person.
What's his title?
He's currently state senator.
He's the state senator for this.
He's a state
area.
senator for this district.
So I just want to be clear. So the state senator for this city blocked the network with the number one public school for college prep in the state.
He absolutely did.
To open a school in his district.
Not only did he is still. So there's $4.5 million that was supposed to come to Middletown to create a new school, to replicate a school that's among one of the most successful in the state's history, in our hometown, that is widely supported by the community. And for reasons that only he knows, he has worked the back channels and has gotten the money removed from the budget. Now, that's an illegal act, and that's why we're suing the state. But the point is that even when you have, and we teach our children this, even when you have the best application and the highest performing school, our children will tell you, I said this to them just yesterday, you still got to be twice as good. I said to them, if I'm going to be the only person who tells you this, you got to still be twice as good. It's not enough for you to be the best. You got to be twice as good because somebody can come behind you and do dirt. And so that's what happened. Why we're here today, instead of being here celebrating the second graduating class, which is what we should have, we're still fighting for a school that we earned. They earned it.
So the money was allocated in the budget.
The money was there.
The money was allocated by lawmakers.
The money is still there. It's not. I appreciate you asking the question, and I only make a slight correction because tense is important. The money is still in the budget. The money is still available. This is a decision that the state legislators have made to use the state's budget as their own personal cupboard. And quite frankly, to go against the will of the people. The people have spoken.
The people who also pay taxes.
The people who also pay taxes, and I dare say, who at one point called this gentleman an ally. Right? Call him an ally. But you know somebody's a real ally when you want something that they don't want to give you. You get to see really where their heart is. So we're here because of this. As you well know, Roland, Frederick Douglass said in his narrative, he told a story of how when a slave master of his began to teach him to read, that the husband of the slave master said, if you teach him to read, he will be of no use to us. You can't enslave a person who knows their humanity. So in our case, what we have is we have the most dangerous thing in America. We have educated, motivated, young, black, and Latin people who ain't scared of nobody. They know they're going to college.
So let me say this. We reached out to 43 lawmakers, the Black and Puerto Rican caucus here in Connecticut. Only one responded, declining our invitation. There was Representative Kai Belton. State Senator Matt Lesser also declined to come be a part of this town hall for us to ask him questions directly. Governor Ned Lamont, as well as State Board of Education Commissioner Charlene Russell Tucker, also did not respond to our request as well. So we wanted to make that perfectly clear. We reached out via phone, via email, some phone as well, and folks chose not to be here. And I wish Senator Lesser would be here. I wish he would have come here.
Me too.
To face his constituents and have to answer those questions. Because for the life of me, I don't understand how you can be a state senator, and this is your district, and you look at the data and what it says, and we're going to go over in our next segment. Because I want to be very clear for the audience of what the data is for the education of black kids in this city, and deny the opportunity for a highly successful network to come in. I mean, if I to use a sports language, but that's like saying, oh, I've got a football program and I got an opening up, and so I heard Nick Saban wants to come coach, but nah, I don't want Saban to come coach. I don't want Eddie Robinson to come coach. Let's just go find somebody else. That's just the dumbest thing in the world.
That's one analogy. Another analogy is I have a school system that is the worst in the state at educating black children, and the best in the state of educating black children wants to come, and I, as a person who claims to be an ally, I'm going to stop that organization from coming in to better educate the black children. But I am your friend.
It is, frankly, it's illogical, but it's also diabolical. And the thing for me, and the thing that I have said all across this country, is that if this is where the power of the ballot is so important. Because what I'm always trying to explain to our audience and others, that you have to connect public policy, community outcomes with the ballot. Because the individuals who are in public office, governor, state rep, state senators, bureaucrats, county commissioners, city council members, school board members, DAs, judges, up and down, those folks are spending billions of dollars, taxpayer dollars, that are supposed to be for the benefit of the people of that state, of that community, of that neighborhood, of that county, of that city, of that parish, depending on what way you live and what you want to call it. And their job is to be proper stewards of the people's money, and their job is to be responsive to the needs of the people. And I've long said to people, we cannot continue to be comfortable in allowing.
What is vitally important is to understand who taught you. The overwhelming majority of us were taught, in large part, by one race and one gender. White women, by and large. Doesn't make them bad people, it just makes it the truth.
Depending upon where you grew up.
And by and large.
I was born and raised in Houston.
Okay. So
I had black people.
So let's stay there. Oh, but wait.
With a sprinkling of white women, but I had black people.
But watch and see this. Watch and see this. Congratulations. The people who chose your curriculum were not those same black people. It is the reason why many of us grew up believing that George Washington was a hero, not an owner of over 300 souls. It is the reason why we believe
300 enslaved souls.
Enslaved souls. It is also the reason why many of us have been led to believe that those teeth that he had were wooden. They were not wooden. He knocked the teeth out of a human being and took them out of his living mouth. It is because there was an expectation that we were going to be taught to have idolatry for a particular group of people. Not only is Capital Prep number one in terms of its academic performance as it relates to college preparation, we're also typically one or two in terms of the percentage of African American faculty who we hire. So we're not just African American and Latin children. We're not just performing well academically, but we're doing so by having our community be in a position to determine not just what is taught, but who is teaching it.
And that's why when I open at the top, when I talk about why it's important to be able to control the system. When you look at the numbers across this country, less than 2% of all teachers in the country are black males. Yet when you look at charter schools, especially those that are black-run charter schools, it is a much higher percentage because they are determining who gets hired. And whenever I bring that up in these sessions, I remember I talked to, it was a group, I was in Nashville, and it was a group of black school board members. And when I go into the room, and it's probably 80-90% completely against school choice as a black choice. 45 minutes later, it was a standing ovation because so many of them had no clue on how this works. They were school board members. Some of them were charged with authorizing charter schools and had no clue about curriculum, teachers, contracts, all of that. Because, and the reason I framed it that way, because I need people to understand education is not solely about what happens in the classroom. It is the entire ecosystem.
I want to stay there. Many people will say, why do you have to get political? Just talk about schools. The most political thing that you have is a school. It literally determines the power of the next generation. And in this community, when I grew up, I had from kindergarten to 12th grade one African-American faculty member. And he's here. Mr. Saunders is here. When I was majoring in African American studies, when you light skin, Roland, you got to really push in this thing. So this might be one of the only places that people do know, in fact, that I am black without me saying it. But the point remains that it does matter, not just for African American children, but for all children, that you recognize that having different perspectives is important to learning. It's just a super cool thing. I wish more white kids could go to schools where they could have access to more and more African American faculty. Our kids don't think twice about having African American faculty because it's just typical. Like, it's just normal for them to have black administrators and not. I mean, this is going to sound crazy. We don't trip over Black History Month because that's every month. Like,
well, it's like with us. People hit me up, and I've had advertisers. They say, "Hey, what's your plan of action for Black History Month?" I was like, "Well, we ain't really doing nothing for Black History Month."
Right.
And I told them, I said, "Well, I do black every day, so y'all are more than welcome to advertise in March or April or May or June, October, August." And I was like, it's not. I mean, is we black every day?
It's what you have to do when you have to remind an organization that there are African American people in this world. You don't have to remind us. We're pretty clear on that. And one of the things that's cool is some of our kids have referred to our school as a historically black high school. We'll take that. We are proud, not in absence of others, but in presence of ourselves. We are proving that it can be done. If there's ever a question, can a school founded by, run by, supported by African Americans in a poor community whoop the pants off of the wealthiest, whitest schools in the United States of America? I say, yeah, I got proof.
And when you... And when we talk about looking at it, a lot of this is also looking at this totally different. I had Sean Hartnett on my show. And here's a brother who was working in a traditional public school and in a black neighborhood. And these black boys were failing in math and science. They're failing. Sean decides to start his own public charter school for black boys. So the exact same black boys who were in this school and they were failing across the board, they go to his school and all of a sudden they're soaring in math and science, and they are loving math and science because he saw how it was being taught and why it was failing. And what I said to me, and I say the exact same thing for anybody in this state, if you're failing and you're succeeding, do what you did what you said. You started the white private schools. Study what they're doing.
What we did. Replicate
what they're doing and try to achieve the exact same thing. And for the life of me, that's somehow this hard, difficult thing for folk to get. Well, it's not.
No.
But they make it hard, which is dumb to me.
Well, so the reason, let's be crystal clear. You and I are having a conversation about putting children first. The teachers union has zero interest in putting children first. They just don't have any. And they use children as shields in order to get more money for systems.
Actually, I'm expanding to public officials. They stand on the floor. They proclaim education matters. They have debates. They go around, they say, but I don't listen to what you say. I watch what you do.
That's it.
And if you are voting against the interests of children and the proper outcomes, you are not an education advocate. You are not an ally. And in fact, I will use another language. You are actually my enemy.
All day. And that's really, you and I are having a conversation, and many of the people here are struggling to reconcile. How do you take the school that got the highest score on the application and deny them, How do you take the highest performing school in terms of sending children to college, and they're one and the same, and deny that in a community that has some of the lowest performing African American children, if you have children as a goal? And the answer is because our teachers are not in the union, meaning that our teachers' wages are not garnished automatically by an organization that says that they represent them. So because our teachers don't pay into a union, just like you've seen throughout history, they're the same groups who for generations would go in. If you were the people who you were laying concrete and your people were not paying kickbacks to that group, they would come and tear up your concrete. That group is the same as the teachers union. What they do is they want to organize the school, which means they want to garnish the wages of every, and garnish means take money out of every single person's paycheck every single time they get paid. Our teachers have said, we don't need that. We work in a place where we can talk like grown people and we can negotiate our own circumstances and we can be in a better position. We're treated like people who are respected, so they don't want that. So it's not that we're taking what they would consider resources from the district. What we are doing is we are not allowing them to charge our teachers. It's because that's the only thing that this is about. This has nothing to do with kids. The reason why Jan Hockadale, who is the teachers union's president and state senator, is against capital prep is because the teachers are not paying into her union. It is a fact.
So what is Governor Ned Lamont? Has he issued any statement with regards to this issue?
I have not heard him make a statement. The only thing I will say is this. He put us in the budget initially. But if I'm being frank, he could have kept us in the budget. He could have told them to stand down.
Right. Okay, so State Board of Education Commissioner Charlene Russell Tucker, has she given an explanation of why capital prep has been bumped, thrown out?
Has she told the truth? No. But what she said was, because I called her. This is a true story. I called her. I texted her. And then I said, hey, when you get a chance, can you give me a holler? This is in late November, early December of 2024. And I had discovered that they had apparently broken the law. So
hold on. Now, when you say broken the law, how, from your perspective, did they break the law?
Well, what happened...
Which is the basis of your lawsuit. Go ahead.
So the general statute 10-66, the charter school law in Connecticut says that the General Assembly may appropriate funds to the State Board of Education for the purposes of granting charter schools, pursuant to Section 10-66 EE. That's what it says. And so then when you go down to 10-66 EE, what it says is that if in a fiscal year more than one charter school has been approved and is awaiting funding, then the State Board of Education shall determine which school is funded first. It's really pretty straightforward. So if the state gives money for charter schools, then the way that you decide which school gets funded first, if it's not enough money for all of them, is just like every other RFP. And those who are not familiar, an RFP is called the request for proposals. I talked to my children yesterday. It's like an essay contest. You win the essay contest, you get the prize. It's really simple. So if you put in an if you responded to an RFP for DPW and it was to lay concrete and your company was the number one lowest bidder, then you would be given the contract to lay the concrete. Well, in our case, we won. We got the highest score, which means that...
Well, when we say highest score, they establish a criteria.
100%. So the State Board of Education establishes a criteria to which we had to write a document that was about 1,000 pages. And it went through all of our design elements. It talked about what we do and how we'll do it, and talked about our experience in running schools and what we can do and yada, 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 and the need in Middletown. So not only did we win because of the design, but we won because the need in Middletown was so great. Now, I want to really understand, Capital Prep Middletown was the one that was selected over Bridgeport, over New Haven, over some of the poorest cities in the state. Middletown got selected to have a school because of the disparity between white children and black children. It's pretty crushing when you think about it. It literally is apartheid. So I contacted the commissioner and I said, hey, can you give me a call when you get a chance? She had always told me that if I have
Commissioner Charlene Russell Tucker.
Commissioner Charlene Russell Tucker, State Department of Education, a woman who's phenotypically black. So she
put her photo up.
So she texted me. She called me back. It was around 8:00 that night, and I said, "Craziest thing, sis." I said, "I think y'all broke the law." And she said, "What do you mean?" I said, "I know it sounds crazy, right?" So I sent her the law, and I said, "It says here that the State Board of Education is supposed to pick which school is funded first, but you allowed some state legislators to go in and take the money out, and that's not what's supposed to happen." I said to her, so here's it. She said, "Send it to me." So I sent it to her, and she said, "Wow, that is what it says." I said, "I know." So she said, well, I'm going to call you tomorrow for a meeting. I said, "You could do that, but I don't think you should really do that because I don't think people in the department should know that you are unaware of this." And she said, No, I'm going to call you. I said, "All right, cool, do that." I said, "But listen," I said, "I was raised a certain way. I don't want the two of us fighting in public. I don't want two black folks fighting in public over this." I said, "We got a really simple, elegant solution. I already checked with the state senators, and they've already told me that the money is in the budget. So all you got to do is put us on the agenda so that the state board can vote on it, so that money that is still sitting there can just come to us. You ain't got to tell nobody that I told you. You do whatever you got to do, and no one will know about this phone call after this call." She said, "Let me get back to you on that." And I said, "That's super cool." I told her the last thing that I want is for you and I to be fighting in the streets. I said, "Actually, that's not the last thing I want. The last thing I want is our school to not be open. So if you can avoid that last thing, we can avoid the first thing." So she said, "Cool, that was it." I told her again, I said, "My community has raised me to take care of black women." She'll tell you that I said every single word I'm telling you. She'll tell you I said it. I said, "I don't want this to be about you and me." I said, because your department selected Middletown as an alliance district, which in Connecticut means is one of the lowest performing districts in the state. So y'all did this, not me. You knew that they were low performing, not me. You picked us to be number one, not me. So it seemed like this is simple. She said, "Cool, got it." So we were supposed to have a meeting on that Wednesday. She ain't called me. It's cool, Not the first time a girl hasn't called me. Then it was Friday and Thursday came. She ain't called me. Okay, cool. So I was up at the state capitol state board of education, and then she says, "Can you meet with us as your attorney on Monday?" I was like, "See, here we go. Now you want to do it this way? You ain't got to do it like this. Like, just don't do it this way. Like, let's just be decent human beings. I've given you an elegant solution. You already have the money. You see what the law says. It is what it is." So we got on the call, and she's going back and forth, trying to hit us with the flim and the flam, playing in our face. And so at one point I said that this meeting is going really long. You broke the law. Let's just move on. And so one of our attorneys said, can you tell me what the State Board of Education shall determine which school is decided first? Can you tell me what that means? If it doesn't mean that the State Board of Education shall determine which school is funded first. If the State Board of Education shall determine which school is funded first doesn't mean the State Board of Education shall determine which school is funded first. What does the State Board of Education shall determine which school is funded first mean? Their attorney said, "We're done." Ended the meeting. So since that time, we've tried to sit down and talk to them. They didn't want to talk. So I did exactly what I said I didn't want to do. I contacted some people with long bread, and I said, "Hey, can y'all support this lawsuit?" They were like, "Bet. You ain't said nothing but a word. So let's go."
Have you talked to and heard an explanation from State Senator Matt Messer? Put his photo up.
I tried to talk to him. It's on video, me trying to talk to him. He stumbled and stammered. I asked him why he was doing this. And he said that he wasn't going to do it. He's on, I mean, everything I'm telling you is a video of it. Like, there's somebody videoed us talking at the state capitol. I said, do you have any intentions of taking capital prep out of the budget? And he said, what do you call it? Sorry, my glasses are talking. He said, no, I don't know what you're talking about. I said, well, I'm asking you what your plans are. He said, I don't know. I said, you don't know what your plans are? He said, no. I said, so you're not going to hold the budget up or anything like that? He said, who told you that? I mean, it doesn't matter who told me. A lot of people did tell me, but they said you were going to do it. And he said, no, I don't know anything about it. And then a couple hours later, he apparently figured it out and pulled us out of the budget. So I did try to speak to him, but let me be crystal clear also. And other people come up here. I only had one conversation with him. Other people did try to sit down and talk to him. They really did. They tried to sit down and talk to him. And I'll tell you this, Roland, you know, folks around here might think that I'm somewhat wild, so they wanted me not to be in the conversation. Go figure. So they asked me not to come. Elder Harville asked me not to come, and I didn't. So they had a conversation. They can tell you about it because I was not here. But they tried to talk to him. Mm-hmm. They just said, is there something we could do? Because we're not asking you to do anything. We're just asking you not do anything more.
Yeah, what you're asking, though, is as a state senator for this city, provide the resources to open a school that will educate the kids in this city.
The money, and again, even more, the money is already there. So don't take it away. That's a different level of aggression, right? When it'd be one thing if there wasn't money. It was there. It's not like it wasn't there. We're talking about somebody going out of their way to take it away. And I want people in Middletown to understand
that's
this.
A punitive action.
It is a punitive, and I want people in Middletown to really understand this. You have today $4.5 million that's supposed to be going to Middletown's children. That's today.
And now, first of all, when was that supposed to be allocated?
2023.
This 2023?
Yeah.
And the school would have opened when?
Pardon me? 2023.
The school would have opened in 2023.
It was supposed to open in 2023, yeah.
So 3 years have now gone by as a result of this action, and that's 3 years. So if you are a parent here and your kid's in the first grade, your kid's now in the fourth grade, going to the fifth grade, and you're waiting still for an opportunity, a shot at a top school.
It hurts when you say that, Roland, and I'll tell you why. My family still lives in Middletown. Like, that actually hurts me because these are my people. And this is not a political game for me. These are my families. These are people I've grown up with. These are aunts and uncles of people who take care of, people who made possible for us to have. There's so many people whose faces I see that I grew up with. We struggled together, all of us, trying to find a way to make a way. And if I could give back to them, like if I could be part, because it won't ever be me. I'm not even the full founder by myself. If one of our founders is here, like we did this as a team, as a family. They have, like, people my age, we got grandkids in some cases, and I should be in a position to support my family. This dude is literally, because our teachers won't pay union dues, stopping children from having access to one of the best schools in the United States of America. Why would you do that? To what God do you pray with? You can feel comfortable knowing that you've done that. This is not about politics for me. It's about children. I don't make any more money because we get more schools, and quite frankly, I make less because I got to drive further and further. The Middletown school is going to be 2.5 hours, almost 3 hours from our Harlem school. The school day is only 7 hours. That means that I'm up at 3 o'clock in the morning, where I was only up at 4 o'clock in the morning before, just to get between the schools. But our children in this community are worth it. Why would anyone do that?
We're going to go to a break. We come back. I want to go over the data to walk folks through to understand how dire the education situation is here in Middletown, specifically for African Americans. Folks, you're watching Roland Martin Unfiltered on the Black Star Network, live in Middletown, Connecticut. We'll be right back.
Next, A Balanced Life with me, Dr. Jackie, a relationship that we have to have. We're often afraid of it and don't like to talk about it. That's right. We're talking about our relationship with money. And here's the thing. Our relationship with money oftentimes determines whether we have it or not. Balancing your relationship with your pocketbook. That's next on A Balanced Life with me, Dr. Jackie, here at Black Star Network.
With medicine and science under attack, I want to keep you and your family informed and healthy. I'm Dr. Ebony Hilton, and I knew at the age of 8 that I wanted to be a doctor. So I studied hard and became the first African-American female anesthesiologist hired at the Medical University of South Carolina since its opening in 1824. And I always say I was made into a doctor, but I was born to be a mom. And as a new mom, wife, sister, daughter, and friend, I understand how frightening a medical crisis can be. I care for individuals on some of the worst days of their lives, and it's my mission to provide you with a safe space to gain clarity on issues affecting your mind, body, and soul. I recognize that there are health disparities, particularly as it pertains to race, and I want to help bridge the gap between you and your healthcare providers. Join me every Thursday for Second Opinion on the Black Star Network, where each week I'll invite experts from various medical fields to share the latest health news. We'll discuss topics such as the vaccine debate, mental and sexual health, medical bias, infertility, menopause, andropause, nutrition, and aging. Together with my medical colleagues, we aim to provide you with a second opinion. Don't miss it, Thursdays only on the Black Star Network.
This is Bill Duke, and you're watching the Black Star Network.
Folks, welcome back. Cross Street AME Zion Church here in Middletown, Connecticut. Joining me right now is Richard Begansky Jr., Senior Executive Director for Data and Accountability with the Capital Preparatory Schools. Richard, glad to have you here. So let's walk through the data. How many students are here in Middletown schools? How many students?
Over 4,000.
4,000 students. Racial makeup of the 4,000 students?
I think it's like 30% Black and African American, 30 or 40% Hispanic, and then the rest are white.
Gotcha. So majority Black Latino school district.
Yes.
All right, let's walk through the numbers. How dire is it?
It's bad. You mentioned earlier in the show something about looking at data and going back 15, 20, 30 years. And so the data that I looked at for tonight and basically for all the comparisons for the state that we put together is looking to start from when Capital Prep and Bridgeport started, which was 14, 15. And so if we take a look at the last, and again, like the challenges are is that it's not just at the elementary and middle school level, it also bleeds into the high school. So since that time, there have been...
So K all the way through 12.
Yeah.
Got it.
So state testing in Connecticut is probably like a lot of states where they take a look at and compare, or they look at proficiency rates for grades 3 through 8. And so when you compare the white performance on state exams since 14, 15 to now, and you look at the average gap, so the achievement gap is how whites or subgroups perform. So for tonight's argument, we're taking our conversation, we're looking at the difference between black and white. And on average in ELA, that's 32 points difference. In terms of proficient percentage, and in math, it's 30%. So it's a giant disparity over that time. And then for Hispanic students, it's a little bit better, not a whole lot, but 28% percentage point difference average each year in ELA and 27 points in math.
I will sit this here when it comes to white and black SAT scores. 152 points, white and Hispanic 149 points.
Yeah, that's the average difference over that time span. So it's from 14-15 to 24-25. 152 points difference in average SAT scores, and for black and African Americans, and then for Hispanics, 148 points. So, I took a look at some website that says, okay, if you put in this SAT score, it'll open up, or it'll show you what are the schools that you would be able to apply to, or that your SAT score would fall within the window of their eligibility. And for the white students who averaged in Middletown over that time frame about 991 on their SAT scores, they have the opportunity to apply to or 680 colleges or so. Or that
yeah, I have it. So white students they would have 621 college options.
Right. So 621 colleges fit that. The 991 fit within there. And so when you look at the black and African Americans,
black SAT score will be 838. How many options?
I think 70, 78.
78. Yeah. For Hispanics, 841, 94 college options. Yeah. So white college options, 621. Hispanic college options, 94. Black college options, 78. That is huge.
Yeah, and if you looked at the list of the colleges, and I did, and I'm not going to disparage anybody because I'm sure some of those colleges of those 78 are fine institutions, and I'm sure they're doing the best they possibly can. But I honestly hadn't heard of most of them, like never heard of them. And I've been in it working in Capital Prep, for 20 years. So that says a lot about what those options are, and none of them are in state. So if you go to school in Middletown and you're really close to your family because your support network is here, and that's what your family is relying on you and you're relying on them, like you don't have the option to go to school in Connecticut if you go to school here. Everything was like in Mississippi, Oklahoma. Those are great states, I'm sure. I don't want to live there, but I think that I don't know how many of our folks want to go there away from everybody unless they already have family.
Well, not just that. You also have to factor in going there, out-of-state tuition, travel, back and forth. There are a host of other issues that come in, economic issues that are in play. Let's talk about, again, when we look at the data in terms of how Capital Prep outperforms other folks. Explain Capital Prep Harbor outperforming Bridgeport on the ELA. So first of all, I hate acronyms. So what is the ELA?
So the tests are broken into two parts. ELA stands for English Language Arts, and then the math is obviously math.
So when it comes to Capital Prep Harbor, outperforming the host district Bridgeport, how many years?
All 8.
8 out of 8 years in ELA, 7 out of 7 years in math.
Yes.
Harbor performing better than Middletown. 7 of the 8 years in ELA, 7 of the 8 years in math.
7 out of 7 in math, just because our first year that we existed in math, the data is suppressed. So all the data that you're accessing or referring to is public data. It's on edsite.com or edsitepublic.com. So everybody can look at it. And so because the data is suppressed, I didn't want to put numbers there that people weren't going to be able to compare and then have them come back and say, well, this isn't accurate. So it's a star, and star just means that the numbers
just
are
pull
so
the microphone a little bit closer to you so they can hear you.
All right, sorry. I don't have to do this a lot usually.
It's all good. I'm used to it.
No,
that's why you hold it right below your chin.
Yeah.
And you'll get better audio.
I just wanted to put that out on the record that I don't usually have to do this type of stuff.
That don't mean nothing to me.
I understand that.
Tonight you got to do it.
And I'm here.
The reason I wanted to walk through these data points is because numbers are numbers. A friend of mine, he always says, math doesn't lie. Some folk can try to sit here and fudge the numbers, but math doesn't lie. You said they were public numbers. And it speaks to the issues that we have, that if in this city, if it continues at the current rate, that means that the next generation of black children and Latino children in this city are going to virtually have, I won't say no options, but severely limited options in the future. And then what that means is that's going to limit their economic opportunities, which means is that's going to be a hardship on their families. And then if that continues, that means their children are going to come through the exact same school system, have the exact same hardship, and now what we've done is created generational poverty solely based upon how they're being educated. That's what these numbers show.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And again, you could go back further than 14, 15, and you can still see that those numbers hold true. And in fact, they get worse. You know, like the percentages increase. The pre-COVID numbers are in the mid-30s, maybe upper 30s for the difference between black and African-American and white students, and then into the 30s for the Hispanic. So it's gotten slightly better, you know, even though it's terrible after COVID, but the trend is in Middletown that those numbers are starting to creep up, you know, from 23, 24 to 24, 25, whereas, you know, for Capital Prep, we don't have those same issues. I mean, we're taking the same kids. We're taking Bridgeport students, right, which are, if you take a look at their performance, it's lower than Middletown, and we're elevating their performance to much higher than what we have in Middletown, and it's dispiriting for me to attend conferences, not these, but other ones where people get up and say, well, you know, the school's just fine. It's good for my kids, and I don't have a problem with it. And it's kind of like, well, you're white. Of course you don't. You know, like I wouldn't have a problem with it either. But, you know, like I have a son who's in the schools right now. He's in 7th grade, and I'm pasty. I get that, but he's not. You know, my wife is Hispanic, and I'm really, really worried. And I think about it a lot at night. Like, well, what's going to happen to him? Like, what options is he going to have? Because, like you said, I mean, like, maybe we could have him go to a Catholic school. You know, we don't practice, but, you know, like, I understand that there's all types of religions in Catholic schools because they want different options. But, you know, that comes with a cost, and not all of his friends are there. And so it's just, it's hard. It's hard to be a parent, and it's really sucks that to live in a community where it's spoken. It said, hey, here's something we want. I want this. I want to have options. And yet we can't because there's people who don't know the numbers and aren't actively participating in what's best for kids. They're just acting what's best for self.
And then what that does is, again, it's forcing parents to now have to spend more of their income educating their kids when they're already paying taxes going into a public system. And here you have an option that is not a private school option, that is a public charter option. I think that's one of the misnomer for so many different people when people say who don't even understand charters. When you say public charter, they mean that is a public school. They have to be accountable to the state, accountable to standards. In fact, depending upon the state, you actually have more rigorous standards in public charters than you do have in traditional public schools.
Yeah. Part of what I have to do is work with accountability, and so you're 100% right that there are rules and there are achievement and benchmarks that we have to achieve that the public schools don't. If the public schools don't have certified staff, no big deal. You know, they'll hopefully get it next year, you know. But if we don't, then it's a real big problem. We have accountability, corrective action. So we're on a corrective action plan. So we have to lay out to the state 3 times during the year what our plan is, what are we doing, what's our progress, and then make adjustments to it and say, okay, well, here's what we're going to do afterwards. And then again, do that. We do that at the beginning of the year, like October, November. Then we do it again in February. I just saw that then we have another one due in March and the beginning of June. And so, you know, they look at our suspension numbers. Oh, they're too high. Okay. Like, you know that our numbers are pretty similar to other schools just like us, you know, and in fact, we're probably a lot better in some areas. Doesn't matter. You know, we're on corrective action for that. So again, we have to keep the data collected, explain what a student did, what their infractions were, and send this plan, and then it gets rejected, then it comes back to us, and then we have to, okay, well, what is it that you would like to see, and then put it in, and send it back to have it rejected. So it's going back and forth, but some of these other towns, they have really high suspension numbers. It's like, they might say, well, you have to attend a conference, and then hopefully that's better next year. But you're right. The accountability on us is much higher than it is for public schools.
Last question for you. It has to, as a numbers person, as a data person, it has to absolutely frustrate you to look at these numbers and then see the inaction on behalf of public officials when it comes to what's actually happening on the ground.
It's I don't know how to say it other than it's the exact opposite of elation. Like when we have our graduation, when the work that Dr. Perry and I did, we watch the kids come across in graduation, or when we at the end, we have an aisle just like this, we line up on both sides, we high five and hug kids, the graduates as they go through. That's as good as it gets, right? That's on top of the mountain, but when I'm here and then I see my son and his friends and they're playing and they're doing stuff, and I'm just like, you're hit, you're hit, and you're hit. You're gonna be okay because you look like you could be white, but the others, I don't know, and I'm worried, I mean, right now my son's a good student. He's near the top of his classes. He gets really good grades. Is it going to be enough? Will that allow him to take AP classes? Will it allow him to take a dual enrollment college class, with Tunxis here, at Capital Prep? Those kids, it's assured. It's a sure thing. Even if they don't want the class, they're getting it, right? They're going to go to these college classes. They're going to take AP classes, even if they want them or not, and then they're going to go on to college. It doesn't matter. But my son, I don't know. It's frightening. It's scary. It's despair even.
All right, then, Richard, you're not off the hook.
All right.
That's right. I don't want you to break it out in a sweat. All right, Richard, I appreciate it. Thanks for the numbers, folks. We come back. We're going to talk with faith leaders about how they are organizing and mobilizing in this city to put pressure on elected officials to do the right thing on behalf of the children of Middletown. You're watching Roland Martin Unfiltered on the Black Star Network. Don't forget to support the work that we do. Look, we don't have millionaires and billionaires cutting us checks. We're completely independent owned, black owned, 100%. It's about speaking to the issues that matter. Because of that, we don't have to ask permission to do shows like this. We don't have to run it by anybody. Either I say yay or nay, and that's it. So we want y'all to support our work. Join our Bring the Funk fan club. We purposely do not have a subscription. We don't put our content behind a Patreon wall because we want our content to be widely available and free and accessible to everyone. So your support is critically important. We've had 47,000 donors since we launched this show 7.5 years ago, and so our goal is to hit 50,000. And so our ask is simple. We ask folks to contribute on average $50 each a year, which is $4.19 a month, 13 cents a day. You're supporting this show and the 5 other shows on the Black Star Network. And so if you want to do that, use a Stripe QR code. You see it on the screen. If you're listening, go to blackstarnetwork.com. That Stripe QR code is for Cash App and for credit cards, checks and money order. As all the old school folks who do not believe in technology, checks and money order. Make it payable to Roland Martin Unfiltered, P.O. Box 57196. Y'all think I'm lying. I got 30 checks sitting in my backpack right now. P.O. Box 57196, Washington, D.C., 20037-0196. PayPal is R. Martin Unfiltered. Venmo, RM Unfiltered. Zelle, Roland at RolandSMartin.com. Roland at RolandMartinUnfiltered.com. We'll be right back.
Trying to erase black political power since Reconstruction. Now the Supreme Court is helping them finish the job. First came Shelby County versus Holder in 2013, the ruling that gutted the Voting Rights Act. Then came Brnovich in 2021, another ruling, another piece torn away. Now comes Calais, the case civil rights leaders warned could cripple the last major federal protection against racial vote dilution, and within days, Tennessee eliminated its only majority black congressional district. Louisiana, South Carolina, Alabama. The same strategy is spreading across the South. The old Jim Crow used poll taxes and literacy tests. The new Jim Crow uses gerrymandered maps, voter roll purges, polling place closures, and court rulings that make black communities politically invisible. But this story doesn't end in a courtroom. It moves to Selma. May 16th is a national day of action. Faith leaders will gather at the Edmund Pettus Bridge at 9 a.m. A mass rally follows at the Alabama State Capitol from 1 to 5 p.m. 1965 was Freedom Summer. This is Freedom Summer 2.0 because they are still trying to erase black political power, and we will not bow. They've been trying to erase black political power.
This is Bill Duke, and you're watching the Black Star Network.
All right, folks, welcome back. Cross Street AME Zion Church. I want to now introduce our next panel. Bishop William McKissick, President, Middletown's Interdenominational Ministerial Alliance. Give it up. Reverend Robin Anderson, Pastor, Cross Street AME Zion Church. Moses Harville, Presiding Elder, Hartford District, New England Conference, Northeast Episcopal District. All right, so glad to have all three of you here. Let's talk about, obviously we've laid out in terms of the need with what's happening in this city. How are faith leaders addressing this issue, and how are they utilizing your pulpits to put pressure on political leaders to step up, to do what's right for the benefit of the children of this city? Because the numbers that we just went over, those numbers are absolutely scary. And I'm telling you, we have to understand you can look at those numbers and you can project future incomes. You can look at those numbers, and we already know states across this country, they base prison plans upon test scores in elementary school. And so we're trying to avoid those things. And I would rather spend money on the front end than on the back end. So what's happening in this city, and what has been the response? Elder, I want to start with you. Steve mentioned, you said in the meeting y'all had with State Senator Lesser, what happened in that meeting? What did he say?
I am the Moses Harville that Dr. Perry spoke about, that spoke with him as well privately, and said that we need to have another choice of school in the city of Middletown. And I still believe that today. In that meeting, yes, still do. In that meeting, we discussed, number one, why he did not agree with having a school here in the city of Middletown. We never received an answer, per se, and then I've had my own opportunity to speak with him privately. He understands where I stand in regards to it, and I just wish he would also say how he stands.
So this is where I'm confused, okay? Either you support it or you don't.
That's it.
And
Absolutely.
if you don't, just say why. Just say, I don't like him wearing bow ties. I mean, just give an answer.
And to be truthful, I would have no problem with that. Just don't try to stop it from happening. I have no problem if you desire not to have it here. But don't stop it from happening in the city, because we desire for it to happen in the city of Middletown, the capital prep. So yes, I can still just be truthful, and I'm fine with that. But we will not let up. So what we're doing, we won't let up. We won't. And we won't shut up either. In regards to what Capital Prep has to offer for our children, this is about the children. It's really not about us. It's about the children of the city. They have better opportunities, and that is what we're fighting for. I'm from Birmingham, Alabama. I know about struggle. I know about challenges. And I know about opposition. But we do not give up. For a good cause like this, no, we will not give up. For a good cause like this. So, yes, we're going to keep fighting, and we're going to push. We're going to push. That's pray until something happens and work as well.
Well, Robert, I believe in two types of push. I believe in pray until something happens, and then the something happens part means push you out of office. And the reason that has to be put front and center. I'm born and raised in Houston, and 2022, there were George Floyd gets killed in 2020. Then in 2022, massive right-wing backlash. Election, Moms for Liberty, running folks in school boards across the country. They begin to ban books. They took over school boards, started firing black superintendents. That began to happen all around the country. A lot of places, conservative communities. But over the last two cycles, what we have seen is we've seen folk throw those folks out of office. We just had various school board elections in the Dallas-Fort Worth area and in conservative parts of town. They were voted out of office. And what I say to people is, if you believe that there are school board members and city council members and county commissioners and state reps and state senate, congressional leaders, who are not being responsive to the needs of the people, then those folk need to be pushed out. What are you hearing from other ministers in this city? Are they as frustrated that this has gone on now for 3 years and going towards a fourth year? That's you.
Yes, sir.
Only one rabbit on this panel.
I think everyone, what I've seen is that the ministers here in Middletown have continued to mobilize and also have continued to speak out, on the fact that we're not going to stop until we have the Middletown Capital Prep School right here in Middletown. It is the right thing to do. As the data was also presented, and also as we look at even our children that are not in the top percentile, and we have some bright children, and there's no reason why our children, black and brown children, should not be in the top percentile of the school system here in Middletown, Connecticut. We also have our African American males, which I always remember that segment that we did, what did it mean to be black in America? And one of the things they talked about was the fact that our school system fails our African American males. And so Capital Prep has a record that shows that they have lifted our African American males. And when they were on that pipeline saying that they may go to prison or that they would be illiterate, they're in college right now. And some of them are actually graduating. So we've seen those things. My child also at Covenant Baptist Church, 3845 South Capitol Street in Washington, D.C., we had a chartered school back in the late 80s, early 90s, in which my child attended. And even today, that my child is doing extremely well. She's a APRN, have gone to the best schools, graduated from the best schools, and graduated magna cum laude. So again, I have a child that's a product of the chartered schools also. And then I also worked in the substance abuse field, in the clinical field, mental health field, and also the prison system. So I've seen the results also all the way around. And so I just believe that we have to still galvanize, that we have to do whatever we can to make sure that capital prep, we have to put the pressure, we have to go to the ballots, we have to cast our vote to make sure that capital prep is not something that's waiting for even a lawsuit, but it is going to be something that will come to fruition. I also think about what Calvin Rolock says. I'm sure you know him, the president of the United Front. The only one that can save us is us. Let's save us.
Bishop, I often talk about Dr. King's last sermon, April 3rd, 1968, at Mason Temple in Memphis, when he was talking about the sanitation workers in the strike. And at one point, he referenced Reverend Jesse Jackson Sr., who we recently lost. He said, Jesse, what do you call it? He said, redistribute the pain. He said that the garbage workers are feeling the pain. We need to redistribute the pain. And he talked about an economic withdrawal. I believe that when we talk about redistribute the pain, clearly the students are suffering and experiencing the pain. What do you say that this community needs to say to those weak, impotent lawmakers? How must we redistribute the pain to them?
We need to continue to move forward. Again, as the president of the Minister Alliance, we need to first and foremost know that what we're talking about now is our children in our churches. Every pastor who's part of it, we have like 22 black pastors in the city. And therefore, we have numbers, and certainly we know that numbers are important when it comes to any decisions to be made and change that needs to be made. Many times, people will ignore you, but as Dr. King showed us, when you come with numbers, things can happen. And so, first and foremost, we need to, as leaders in the city, to let our congregants know they are our family, so that they're our sons and our daughters who, for the last 3 years, have gone without an opportunity to be a part of a school that brings forth excellence. And so we must continue to move forward together. From a political perspective, we must, again, I've met personally with, in a meeting on 3 different occasions with Matt Lesser, and I met with the Lieutenant Governor and a few other folk in terms of the capital prep, and us being denied the right to open a school that is ours. And so my sermon, if you will, to the other pastors in the city is we've got to, one, get united, stay united, and move forward together, knowing that, again, this is not about us. It's about our children. It's about our future. And we can't stop. We can't stop. One of the things I say in the meetings I attend so often is that we're not fighting for victory. We're fighting from victory. And for fighting from victory, that means it's already ours. We just got to go and get it and continue to do so.
Start back before, on the far side again, Elder. When we talk about politics, even though Trump helping out his white evangelical right-wing conservatives, allowing them to do politics from the pulpit, IRS still has provisions. And that is, folk cannot endorse from the pulpit. But I remind people that they can support issues. From your perspective, is this school, because you have elections this year, right? Up and down the ballot. Is the building of this school, is this the number one thing on your agenda? And do you believe that every pastor, and I'll ask each one of y'all so y'all get to answer this, do you believe that every pastor in this, every black pastor in this city and other allies should say, if a person is unwilling to support this school, they cannot come to your church? That's laying it clear on what your agenda item is.
That is plain English. It is certainly on the top of my list, the school is, and that those who would come, I would certainly let it be known that they are to speak in regards to supporting the school. I would make that known. I would make that known if they should come.
See, the reason, Robert, I say that is because when I look at numerous communities, there are communities that make the issue of abortion top issue. There are others that make the Second Amendment a primary issue. There are others that make tax cuts a primary issue. I am simply, and understand where I'm coming from, the Catholic Church that I was born and raised in started in my grandparents' living room. Church was 2 blocks from my grandparents' home. We lived 8 blocks from them. So my entire childhood, teenage years, spent tons of time at church. My mom was one of the 3 co-chairs of the Metropolitan Organization, an interfaith group that was citywide and statewide in Texas. So I saw how people of faith demanded issues in public policy. And to me, if the only way we send the right signal to any elected official, governor on down, you're going to have congressional elections. I don't care what the election is. Every single person running for office, if they want to come to your church, should have to say yes or no on this school. Your thoughts on that?
Oh, yes.
No,
yes.
Robin, you already answered. I got you. You on record.
I do think, yes, that they should be able to answer the question if they are for the school or if they're not for the school. And also, again, like we had said before, to also be able to say also, even before they come into the pulpit, why they're not for the school, and if they're willing to also even share that, but to also know up front that the pastor of this church, the Cross Street AME Zion Church, which I make it known all the time, is for capital prep.
Bishop, the reason I fundamentally believe that has to be the standard, because what it does is it sends a strong signal. And the response of every single one of those officials will also tell the people where they actually stand. If you want to swing by here, you're going to have to answer this question. Those who choose not to show up, they've already answered that question. That's why I believe it has to be put on the table.
No, I absolutely agree with you 100%. That one, again, I am on board. I am part of the committee of Capital Prep. I attend the meetings, and I've been involved in them since almost the beginning. I had to take a couple years off as I had a heart attack. God brought me through that. It wasn't because of Capital Prep. Let that be on the record. But no, you certainly can come to New Jerusalem, but you need to know where I stand on Capital Prep and the importance of Capital Prep and why Capital Prep is there. And so you let it be known that in coming in, the question will be asked, why or why not will you come? Because so often in our churches, I'm sure that you're probably aware of this, that when election time comes, all these politicians, they want to come into your church,
right?
And they want to come in and smile at you with their agendas, and many of them are not real agendas to begin with. They're just lying and going forward with what they said. But whenever we come to you and you do nothing,
right?
No, we don't need you.
And I believe, and again, I'm real clear. If you don't, you have to answer the question before you walk through the door. And if your answer is not the answer that is the same as mine, I ain't letting you in the door. The reason I'm saying this, I believe if we say that this is the defining issue, then our response has to be the same. That we have to say to any elected official, we are not compromising on this at all. We're not dancing around this. The numbers are the numbers. The data is clear. It's not like you're arguing for the second or third ranked school. What you're saying is we want the number one school in our city, and you're standing in the way. And I think as a community, as African Americans, and too often I believe what we have done across this country, we have made compromises on some things. And for me, if I'm living here in Middletown, I'm saying to anybody, I will not compromise on this issue. If you stand against this, then you are standing against black people. You're standing against Latinos and development of this. And then you will not absolutely get my support. And you being from Birmingham, listen, it was James Bevel who organized the children. And Dr. King and others, there were other folks around him who said that Bevel was wrong. You shouldn't involve the kids. But what ended up happening in Birmingham was that so many adults got arrested and so many kids had such a fervor that they were climbing out of windows and they were rushing through the doors. And then when Dr. King finally said, unleash the children, it was the unleashing of the children that caused Birmingham to change when the world saw them being hit with those dogs and fire hoses. And I dare say to any elected official, they need to have to face the children of Middletown at every town hall, at every election stop, and force them to stand up. And so my last question for the three of you, how are you thinking about mobilizing this community over the next several months? So when primary season hits and during election season hit, that people are properly, no pun intended, prepped on this issue so they understand the ramifications of why this matters.
I first want to say that thank Bishop McKissick. He's gone through a series of sickness as well as I myself. He has been one of the most outspoken voices for the Capital Prep School. And I'm grateful that we are still here supporting it and mobilizing. So we're mobilizing young adults as well to get involved in the process because we feel they can also add, they have more energy, I must say, than I have for sure. But I have some wisdom to offer them. And so we're going to mobilize our young adults and we're going to move forward. And this is going to happen in the city of Middletown. And we're still here to see it. And we'll be here to see it the years to come.
I think the mere fact that we're all here tonight at the Cross Street AME Zion Church also says, and also Sister Michelle Clay, who's a member of the Cross Street AME Zion Church, who's also chairing this capital prep effort. And again, I unapologetically let anybody know, and has let also Senator Lesser know as well, I support capital prep. And I will be at every meeting. I will be at every hearing, and I've been there. And I've also spoken, and I'm not backing down. And so I think it's important also that we continue to talk about to the community, to our congregations, that they also have the facts as well. And so it was good to have the data here today, but to continue to share that data and to continue to, again, as I mentioned before, this has got to be about all of us galvanizing and coming together and being relentless about the fact that we're just not going to stop no matter what it takes until capital prep is here in Middletown. And I want to also say thank you, Bishop McKissick, also for all that you do in the also your commitment also, even when you were sick, you were still committed.
Bishop?
Again, in terms of mobilization, I will continue to do my part to try to continue to push the Minister Alliance. the pastors of the churches to become more involved themselves, to get their membership involved in this movement, because it certainly is a movement now that we are on. And the truth of the matter is, it's more than just Middletown ultimately, because as we look around this country we're living in right now, taking books away from our children, taking our history back from school, from regular school systems, from having these areas now changed where the black vote is no longer has its power force it once had. If we stop at all with anything, we're making a grave mistake. Too many people have died. Too many people have shed blood and sacrificed too much for us to stop, to give in, and to go back down. And most importantly, we've got to let our children see that we are serious about their educations, so they will be serious, and to continue from generation to generation. Because somebody said a long time ago, we shall and we will overcome.
Let me thank our pastors here. And before I go to break, and I want to bring up, I've got just a couple of more segments here. It's amazing to me. I don't look at what people say, I look at what they do. And as y'all were talking, I sat here and I went to Instagram. And on May 5th, your state senator posted a photo saying, "Thank you, Governor Lamont, for signing our new state civil rights law and standing up to federal overreach." And I would say you cannot be credible praising the signing of a civil rights law if you're standing in the way of your own district's kids being taught. What that says to me is that you don't actually support civil rights, because a proper education is also civil rights. It is, education has an economic outcome. This cannot be denied. So I don't make any excuses whatsoever, and he needs to answer this. And Senator Lesner needs to understand, we're going to call your office every day. He needs to understand I've got 5 million social media followers, and I'm going to gladly put your photo on all of my pages, put your email on all of my pages, put your phone number on all of my pages, and you are going to have to answer, why are you standing in the way of educational progress for Black and Latino kids in this city? And last point, he posted on May 4th that he brought $8 million to Middletown, $2.7 million to Rocky Hill, $1.5 million to Newington, $746,000 to Weathersfield, $573,000 to Cromwell. He listed a total of $128 million. First of all, I don't know how he got $128 million, because $8 million plus 2.7 is 10.7, plus 1.5 is 12.2. 746,000 is 12.9, and another 573 comes to 13.4. Not quite sure how we got to 120 million, but this is what I find to be interesting. He said, quote, "I'm thrilled to report that our state budget has secured a historic investment in the towns of the 9th Senate District. This funding makes our towns more affordable, invests in our schools, and supports seniors and people with disabilities." Except there's a few million that was left out that should be in here if he wasn't standing in the way. Let me thank our panel. Quick break. Going to come back and talk to a couple of co-chairs at Capitol Prep. You're watching Roland Martin Unfiltered on the Black Star Network.
In this country right now, you have people get up in the morning, and the only thing they can think about is how many people they can hurt, and they got the power. That's the time for mourning.
For better or worse, what makes America special, it's that legal system that's supposed to protect minorities from the tyranny of the majority.
We are at a point of a moral emergency. We must raise a voice of outrage. We must raise a voice of compassion. And we must raise a voice of unity.
We are not in a crisis of party versus party. We are in a crisis of civilization, a human rights crisis, and a crisis of democracy itself. And guess what? You've been chosen to make sure that those that would destroy, those that would hate, don't have the final say, and they don't ultimately win.
They've been trying to erase black political power since Reconstruction. Now the Supreme Court is helping them finish the job. First came Shelby County versus Holder in 2013, the ruling that gutted the Voting Rights Act. Then came Brnovich in 2021, another ruling, another piece torn away. Now comes Calais, the case civil rights leaders warned could cripple the last major federal protection against racial vote dilution, and within days, Tennessee eliminated its only majority black congressional district. Louisiana, South Carolina, Alabama. The same strategy is spreading across the South. The old Jim Crow used poll taxes and literacy tests. The new Jim Crow uses gerrymandered maps, voter roll purges, polling place closures, and court rulings that make black communities politically invisible. But this story doesn't end in a courtroom. It moves to Selma. May 16th is a national day of action. Faith leaders will gather at the Edmund Pettus Bridge at 9 a.m. A mass rally follows at the Alabama State Capitol from 1 to 5 p.m. 1965 was Freedom Summer. This is Freedom Summer 2.0 because they are still trying to erase black political power, and we will not bow.
Hey, I'm Malcolm Lee, and you're watching the Black Star Network.
Welcome back, Cross Street AME Zion Church. Joining us now, Michelle Clay, co-chair, Capitol Prep Middletown Planning Committee. Yvette Highsmith, founding member of the Capitol Prep Middletown Planning Committee. Glad to have both of y'all here. All right, so talk about this planning committee. How long have y'all been active, and how's it been going?
So we started the planning committee in early 2023. And, but the planning for Capitol Prep Middletown actually happened 20 years ago, because when Dr. Perry opened Capitol Prep in Hartford, everybody here in Middletown was not happy about that. And we did not understand why he went up 91 North to open a school when we knew that we needed that option here in Middletown. So the seed was planted then.
Now, what you're really saying is y'all were cussing him out for 20
Basically.
years. The seed was planted. Nah, y'all were cussing him out for 20 years.
Perhaps.
Yeah, perhaps. Okay. Why you still eyeballing him now? Why you looking like that?
Because it was the audacity. It was the audacity. You go to Hartford. We right here. You grew up here. You grew up right across the street, sir.
But he had a plan.
But I would say Middletown has not had other public options. And so my family, 3 generations of my family were educated here in the Middletown public school system. And I was, lived in financial poverty, grew up in public housing in the village, and we were not expected to achieve. But I had a mother who, even though she had an 11th grade education from rural North Carolina, spoke into me and said, "You're going to college. You're going to college." And she meant it. And but I had guidance counselors who, because I did not have Mr. Saunders, who said to me, maybe you want to think about another option. How is your family going to pay for college? How are you? Yeah, you have the grades.
They're throwing doubt. Just throwing doubt. Not affirming, doubt.
But I had a mother who was there and said, you don't listen to them, you're going to college. And so we knew that we needed another option for our children. And so we weren't mad at Steve, but we didn't understand why we were getting skipped over again. And so fast forward to 2023, we didn't understand why we're getting skipped over again. And no one was able to give an explanation as to why the application that scored the highest, the application that superseded any other application around community support, was being challenged and questioned. And we are not settling for that. It's long over in our community being skipped over.
See, that for me is probably the thing that ticks me off the most.
Agreed.
You can't even give an answer.
Agreed. They've never given an answer. And I saw the video with Dr. Perry, who was at the Capitol. And I want to be clear about something. People always seem to have a problem with Dr. Perry. And it's not about Dr. Perry.
Oh, I'm familiar with that.
Okay. But at the end of the day, as all of our clergy said, this is about our kids. And he is always fighting at the Capitol, whether it's for teachers or illuminators. That's what they call them at Capitol Prep. He is forever on that Capitol. And he has a video on his phone where he actually was trying to get a direct answer from Senator Lesser. And it was like, I didn't, no, I didn't say that. And it's like, either you do and either you don't. And I've had people say, at the Capitol, I support Capitol Prep, but I got to work from behind the scenes. So one thing y'all probably don't realize about me is you ain't got to tell me what to do come November. I done already drew the line. Either you support it or you don't.
Now November is the general. It's a primary before that, right?
Right. You ain't got to tell me what I'm going to do come the primary, and you ain't got to tell me what I have to do in the general election. I've been drew the line. Don't tell me, I got to work behind the scenes. If you can't stand 10 toes down and say, I support Capitol Prep or I don't support Capitol Prep and give a reason, then it ain't too much we got to talk about. This is not rocket science.
Well, that was to pick up on your point. There's a phenomenal book, and I guarantee you I have sold more copies of this man's book than he has sold. And I've been trying to interview him, James D. Anderson. I know you're working on a new book, but you need to come do the interview. So James D. Anderson wrote a book called The Education of Blacks in the South, 1860 to 1935. It's a fascinating book. And one of the things, what you just talked about with your mother, the period when slavery ended, there was an absolute fervor for education among African Americans. Formerly enslaved people of African descent figured out real quick that if they could kill us for reading, it must be something that is so powerful about an education. When you quoted Frederick Douglass, the overseer's wife, the master's wife, something so powerful. And what was interesting is that when many of the white abolitionists, when they said, "Oh, we've got to go down south to educate these poor black folks," they came down. 500 schools had already been started. In fact, he details in this book that freed slaves really created collective bargaining, because when these white plantation owners wanted them to sharecrop, some of them negotiated the building of a school on the plantation because they said our kids not going to be out here picking crops all day. And for me, that has to be the type of fervor that we have in 2026 when it comes to the education of our children. And I will use the same language. We are going to have to challenge overseers and folk who want us to continue to be sharecroppers and not to be highly educated as those black free slaves wanted to happen for their children.
One of the things that has baffled me about this whole situation is you cannot argue the data. So the outcomes in this beautiful community are horrible in our school system. And so I don't have an issue with somebody taking an issue with capital prep, because that's a choice. But if you don't like capital prep, then why have you not come to the table with another option?
But here's my whole deal. This ain't even about not liking capital prep. If you came up with criteria, because they all love somebody merit, if you came up with criteria, and of your criteria, they're number one, there's no conversation. So whether you like them or not, the data is the data.
But my point with this, Roland, though, is so the elected officials that have the ability to say...
Take this mic. That mic going in and out here.
The ones who have the ability to say what gets on the budget and what doesn't. If those individuals have an issue with capital prep, why have they not come and said one of two things or both and? We need to remediate the Middletown public school system so that we get the outcome that our children are deserving of. Or number two, let's present another public option in the community. Why has that not come up? So the only thing that I can walk away from that...
Because they can't come up with another option.
No, they could if they wanted to, but they don't want to.
No, but here's my whole point.
And they
can't come up with another option.
So they don't want to see what is in this room tonight, which is these highly educated, passionate young scholars. And I need you all to stand up. I need Capital Prep, Harbor, Sharks to stand up. Because this is what they don't want.
Right.
I met a young scholar for Capital Prep who came to me and said, before I came to Harbor, I did not like math. I was not good at math. But that young man had just competed on the math team. And that's what Capital Prep did for him. And that is what these elected officials do not want to see happen in Middletown. Because it will shift the power dynamic.
Right.
And I'll leave it there.
But the reason I say they can't, because you can't create a criteria that you established, and then all of a sudden it doesn't go the way you want it to go. And the problem is, what is it now going to look like if you selected the number 2 or the number 3 over the number 1?
But none of those schools were from Middletown. I'm saying they're not even creative enough to say we're gonna do an offshoot of the Middletown public school system and doing. That's what I'm saying. Those other schools, because to bring it back to reality, just last week they just funded 3 charter schools in the state, right? So they found $3.5 million to fund 3 new charter schools in the state. This is, 3 years after our application went in. So it's not that the state doesn't have an appetite for charter schools or have money for charter schools. For some reason, they don't want Middletown to have a charter school.
Or they don't want it to be capital prep. See, again, when I look at, I've traveled this country, and I've seen the political games being played. And what I keep saying to our community, there is only one response to obstinance, and that is removal. And we talk about, if it comes down to the data also means votes. Absolutely. And whoever gets the most votes, that's who wins. And what this community has to say is, we are going to make every person pay politically who has stopped this school from moving forward. That's the only response I can think of.
But I think another conversation that needs to be had and talked about is the funding process. Because based on what is written in law, they have not been following that rule. So where does it, everybody plays sports. When you're number one and you win, you win. There's a reward for winning. And the past couple of years, the number one schools haven't been funded. And it's because, and I'm going to say it, it's because the people making the decision of who gets the funding can't be impartial. These are other towns where their other state representatives are like, hey, I'm going to fund my school. And they get funded. And how many times, so it's election time, people have called me and said, hey, they've been calling me. Somebody called me and they were like, whatever, do I have your vote? And she's like, no, you don't have my vote. She was like, because you don't support Capital Prep. Oh, and again,
see, she was too nice with the response. I know we're in church, but I'd be like, oh, hell no. That's in the Bible. That's an acceptable four-letter word. It's biblical.
Listen,
go ahead.
Just so you say, I ain't going to say nothing because everybody know how I am. Outside, I would have said that. But to go back to her point, she said no.
God know how I feel. So.
To go back to, they told the representative, the person that literally called their phone, they said no. Then he then says, I support it. You have to work on your state representatives.
And also, if you the governor, come out publicly and campaign hard for it. How about if you so that was the governor?
She said it was the governor.
So I will say this here. If Governor Ned Lamont support this, then Ned Lamont should come to Middletown and do a town hall. Right. Is he running again?
Yes.
Oh, he on the ballot too?
Yes.
Oh, absolutely. Y'all, I'll be, as Bernie Mac said, cut him to the white meat. I'm serious. I'm telling you, the only way you get the attention of elected officials is with the power of the vote. That is the only thing that you have to hold them in check. It's the vote. It's that. That's what it is. Final comment.
You want me to just, okay. I think that the education of our children is critical, now more than ever. And so as a community, we really have to continue to rally behind this. We should never have somebody like Richard sitting up here and rattling off how poorly Middletown is performing. We are better than that. Our children deserve better than that. And no one but us is going to ensure that they have the future that they are entitled to. So we need to ensure that we have the right candidates running for office, that we are casting an informed vote, and that we are making sure that everyone in our concentric circle is getting out to every election, to the primary and to the November election, and having our children at the forefront of your mind as you cast those votes.
There you go.
So I would say my final thought is, a lot of the times, a lot of people say, Michelle, why are you doing this? Why do you do this? You don't have a dog in the fight. I'm the dog in the fight. I'm the cane corso in the fight. I want more dogs in the fight. I need this community to come and be a dog in this fight with me, because tonight was just the beginning. So as our clergy said, we're not going nowhere. We're not letting up. One way or another, Capital Prep is coming into Middletown. And I ask you, join the fight.
There you go. Absolutely. I appreciate y'all being on the panel. Thank you so very much. I'm not going to go to a break real quick. I'm going to have Steve come back up. Anita Ford Saunders, she's a former Middlesex County NAACP chair. Step on up as well real quick. Y'all swap y'all out. Y'all step down. Y'all come on up. Steve, come up. Anita, you here? Where's Anita? Where's she at? Is Anita over here? Okay. All right. Steve, go ahead and take a seat. This is going to be our final segment here. Because one of the reasons why I wanted to ask Anita, so take a seat, former Middlesex County NAACP chair, and also I'm totally transparent. You run for office, right? No, first of all, baby, this is my show. Don't look at it over there. This is my show.
Yes.
Thank you. Don't look at nobody else.
Yes.
This is my show.
Yes.
Okay,
Yes,
I run
yes,
it. I
Roland.
control it.
Yes, Roland.
Got it.
Yes.
You running for office.
Yes.
What are you running for?
State Senate.
Got it. That's all I wanted to know. So, formerly run the NAACP, what do you see? Churches are one thing, parents are one thing. What do you see among grassroots organizations around this issue in this city? Are they mobilized? Are they focused on this issue?
I think we're not mobilized enough. I think that we're focused, but because it's on an intimate basis, on a one-to-one basis, because it's one child after another child. As being the former president of the NAACP, I cannot tell you how many times I've had parents, administrators of color call our office, call me and say, I've been harassed. I have not been dealt with fairly. Everyone from paras to custodians to administrators, heads of departments, the parents, and the young children. They're not being treated fairly, so we're always dealing with it on a more intimate basis, a one-to-one basis. So we need to mobilize.
Is it because folk are afraid to be public with it? And I've experienced it in other places where folk, I don't really want to ruffle feathers. I don't really want to say anything. But my deal is, if our kids are getting screwed, you being quiet ain't helping nobody.
No, it's not. It's not helping. When I'm married to the wonderful Leslie Saunders, guidance counselor to the world. Our kids went to public school. He was a public school teacher. We would tell parents, you need to make noise. I stood in the hallway and argued with the principal of the middle school, who just happens to be the mayor right now, about our son being put in AP math class. And the test scores say this, test scores say that. He argued with me, but I win that argument. Don't I win those arguments, okay? He wins.
How you going to look at your husband? What are you going to say, no?
I'm looking at you.
I thought you looked at, he was like, yeah, she win the argument every time. Yeah, she win the argument. You weren't looking at me. You lean up look at him like, yeah, don't I win the argument every time? Go ahead. I'm sorry. Okay. I see everything. Don't even try that.
You do. And I could not wait to tell him that when he graduated from college, he graduated with an accounting degree, and he was working at Price Waterhouse.
So what you're really saying is, you Queen Petty. So they call me King Petty. I'm the same way, trust me. I had a lot to say to some former teachers when I graduated from Texas A&M. Anyway, absolutely. So you're absolutely right on that mobilization part. Steve, I'm going to close this out because, June 12th and 13th, y'all pull this up. Bishop William Barber and I, we called for this in March. I moderated a panel at the Alpha Southern Regional Convention in March, and it was in Raleigh, North Carolina. And Bishop Barber and I called for 1,000 alphas to be trained in mobilization organization. But then we had brothers who were not alphas who hit us. Then we had sisters who hit us. And so we expanded this. So, folks, if you go to blackstarnetwork.com, June 12th and 13th, it's going to be a virtual online training. Bishop Barber's team, they're going to train the folks. We've already had more than 1,000 people sign up. We want another 1,000 to sign up. So if y'all go to Repairs of the Breach website or just go to blackstarnetwork.com, click the link. And the whole point is to teach people how to organize and mobilize. And what, Steve, our folks have to understand, we love talking about Black freedom movement, civil rights movement. We love talking about how those things happen. But those things did not happen just because. They didn't happen because there were speeches. They didn't happen because there were rallies. Those things are planned. Saturday, in fact, we leave here first thing in the morning to go to Montgomery, Alabama. We're going to be broadcasting, pull the graphic up. We'll be broadcasting Saturday. All roads lead to the south. And it's a massive event we're planning in Montgomery, Alabama. We'll be doing my show tomorrow from Dexter Avenue Baptist Church, which is literally right across the street from the state capitol. We're going to be broadcasting beginning at 1 p.m. Eastern on Saturday. Already there are going to be 50 affiliate events happening around the country as far as Alaska, because we see the attacks on black political power in the South as a result of the Louisiana versus Clay decision by this extreme court. I don't call them Supreme Court. I call them the extreme court. But what folk have to understand is that nothing changes unless regular and ordinary people decide to say, as Fan Lou Hamer said, I'm sick and tired of being sick and tired. And that means, and this is not, Steve, this is not just African Americans or Latinos, it's whites as well. And it's not just if you are a parent with a kid. My wife and I don't have kids. We raised 6 of my nieces. But the reality is we're taxpayers. We hire people who go through school systems. So it doesn't matter if you are a taxpayer in this city, you should be concerned about what's happening with education. And what is required here is for people of conscience who are black, Latino, white, Asian American, Native American, to take this personal and say, as she said, the line is drawn. Either you're with us or you're against us, but you better make it clear where you stand. And if you are against us, we are prepared to take you out. That is the only stance that has to happen. And I will absolutely encourage, obviously parents should be involved, but I think these kids should be on the front lines as well, demanding. That state senator, the mayor, the council, all these folks, they should have to look these kids in the eye and say, I'm not funding a school for y'all. That has to be, I believe, our response over the next few months before the primary and the general election. Your final thoughts.
So I want to just take a second to say thank you to Pastor Robin Anderson and the Cross Street AME Zion Church. Please give it up. Thank you.
Yeah, they put together a nice, comfortable green room for us, and they had the proper chocolate chip cookies that are my favorites. There were 2 bags, and so for the crew, you were not supposed to touch the blue packet, Antoine. That is not, your name is not on the blue one. The other one is for y'all. We're going right ahead.
And you mentioned what a movement. You mentioned the anatomy of a movement, and but for leaders like Pastor Anderson and Elder Harville and Bishop McKissick, who literally fell ill as we sat in the governor's office. Lieutenant Governor's office, literally fell ill, life-threateningly ill, and is here still today, still in the pocket, still in the fight. I also want to quickly remind people that Roland and his team invited every single legislator who has anything to do with this topic. Dare any one of them say that anything was done other than give them the opportunity to stand before the children and community and speak their piece? They said no. They said no.
And they could have joined in person or virtual. They still said no.
They were given multiple opportunities and avenues to do that. And then the final part for me, as I make my final statement, Roland, I want to thank you for consistently being that dude. You didn't have to bring your entire crew up here. You didn't have to come to Middletown, Connecticut to discuss an issue that is in our faces, but the country as a whole would look at a bucolic community such as this and they wouldn't delve deeper into the issues. They wouldn't recognize that, yeah, we go to the same physical schools, but we don't get the same academic outcomes. And ours is a greater achievement gap than you're going to find in Montgomery, Alabama. Connecticut has the greatest achievement gap in the United States of America. So you're actually in the belly of the beast, the epitome of racism. So I told our children yesterday that we wanted them to come tonight because we wanted them to understand that it's not just a theme that our school is, social justice, it is a way of living. Now, our children are here. They were supposed to leave at 8. Our children are here fighting for children they will never meet. They are here tonight because they believe that that which is given to them should be given to other children like them. So to your point, Roland, to your point, this fight is led by the children. We have our brothers and sisters from Danbury, Connecticut here who are in the same fight, where there is a politician who is anti the black and Latin community, because you can't tell me you pro us and we ask for something from you and you tell us we can't have it. So tonight, what you have done is you have connected the proverbial dots. You provided the United States of America and quite frankly the world, because we know you are worldwide, with a glimpse into America that America does not wish to discuss. It is all too easy. Dr. Fuller told me to read, and I am reading Jim Crow Moves North. And what you see in that is that, as you said, African Americans moved up here with a literal religious fervor for education. If you want to see black folks show out, go to a high school or college graduation. For us, it is a literal religious experience. Literal religious experience. And so I say tonight that people in places far less auspicious than this fantastic chapel have done greater things than we are calling for today. Ours is a very simple task. Our task is to make sure that we, as a community, show the children who we are, that we stand on business. They got an hour ride back to Bridgeport, and they got to be up tight and right in the morning. If they can do this, then not one of us is ever too busy or too tired. So I want to thank every single body here. Y'all didn't have to come out tonight, but you did. And my sincere hope is that you found what you were looking for when you came. Roland, I am here because I have been raised to be here. My family, my extended family, and our community. But we're all here for one reason, and that is because no one can convince us that our children are not the most intelligent children on earth.
I'll close it out this way. We are 21 miles and 36 minutes away from Yale University. If you want to talk about Connecticut and its unwillingness to educate black people, understand that the nation's first HBCU was supposed to be in New Haven, Connecticut. But it was the Ivy League institution, Yale, that completely block that and shut it down from happening. What that says is that this state has a long history of trying to stop black educational advancement. You also have often heard me say that when we talk about our heroes and sheroes, we talk about A. Philip Randolph, we talk about Septima Clark and Constance Baker Motley and Diane Nash and James Bevel and Dr. King and Andrew Young and James Orange and Fred Shuttlesworth, and the list goes on and on and on. We often recite those names during MLK's birthday. We talk about it during Black History Month. We talk about these figures all the time. We talk about Bloody Sunday and the foot soldiers. We talk about the children in Birmingham. We talk about Harriet Tubman. We talk about all of these historic figures. And I dare say that whenever we do that, which we should do, what we have to recognize is that those, in all those cases, there were regular, ordinary people who chose to care enough about an issue to do extraordinary things. There were black people who washed bedpans, who folded sheets, who raised other people's children, who cut grass, and who were janitors. That's actually how the movement happened. See, you can have generals in a war. Generals create battle plans, but no general can win a war unless they have troops who are in the battle. And what I've always said, is that it will be a shame 20, 30 years from now in Middletown, in Connecticut, in the cities across this country, where we are talking about what they did, and we're not talking about what we did today. Which means that this is an opportunity for this generation. I see young folks talking about, oh, if I was alive, I wouldn't have done that. Well, now is the moment for this generation to answer that call. Now is the moment for this generation to fight for the education of black children the same way they did post Brown versus Board of Education, which did not happen so easily. Now is the time for this generation to tell modern day Bull Connors that if you are standing in the way of black advancement, you might say the right things. You might tout a civil rights bill on your Instagram page. But if you are blocking the educational advancement of black and Latino children, you are no different than Jim Clark in Mississippi. You're no different than Bull Connor in Alabama. The only difference is you have a smile on your face. This is a moment for this generation to show folk who claim to be allies whether they are real or not. This is a moment for us to expose the frauds and also support those who are legitimate. So when Steve told me about this, he is on my show, I said, you know what, we're going to bring the show there. And we're going to ask them these questions because it's important that the issues be highlighted. And the reason independent black-owned media is so important, because the reality is MS Now and CNN and Fox News and ABC and NBC and CBS would never come here to have this conversation. Oh, they will have numerous discussions about black incarceration. They'll have numerous conversations about pathology, black pathology, but they will not challenge largely white elected officials who are standing in the way of black progress. And so if everybody who's watching, no matter what city and town or state you're living in, there are people where you live who are doing the exact same thing. And what has to happen is for this generation to decide no more. Enough is enough. If you are not on our side, then you are against us. And I challenge this community from this point forward, use the month of May and June and July in August. And when that primary hits, you make it perfectly clear, if you do not stand with us, you will not be in office. This has to be the issue for our community, and this is one we cannot turn our backs on, because the reality is no one knows who the next black billionaire or millionaire or television anchor or entrepreneur or teacher or principal is. And if these black children today, and Latino kids, and also white kids, if they do not have a shot at a better life, it will be because of what happened K through 12, and we simply cannot allow that to happen. And so if those folks are standing in the way, I need everyone here to say to them what my frat brother, my alpha brother, one of our founders, Vertner Woodson Tandy, said. He said that we will fight until hell freezes over, and then we will fight on the ice. Let me thank Cross Street AME Zion Church. We thank the pastor. Let me thank Dr. Steve Perry, Capital Prep, all the students here. Y'all stand up. Give me a wide shot. Give it up for all these students, y'all. Looking great. Folks, be sure to support the work that we do. Join our Bring the Funk fan club. Contribute via Cash App and credit cards. Use Stripe. You see it on the screen. Also, of course, go to blackstarnetwork.com. Check your money order. Make it payable to Roland Martin Unfiltered, P.O. Box 57196, Washington, D.C. 20037-0196. PayPal is R. Martin Unfiltered. Venmo, RM Unfiltered. Zelle, Roland at RolandSMartin.com. Roland at RolandMartinUnfiltered.com. Download the Black Star Network app. Apple phone, Android phone, Apple TV, Android TV, Roku, Amazon Fire TV, Samsung Smart TV. Y'all want to get our Roland Martin Unfiltered swag, go to shopblackstarnetwork.com for our hats, t-shirts, all that good stuff. Also, we created a marketplace there. We have more than 50 black-owned businesses on our marketplace. When you support those products, you support our show. So please go to shopblackstarnetwork.com to check all of those products out. Don't forget, check out Brittany Noble for the breakdown of Brittany Noble every day, noon Eastern on the Black Star Network. Please do that. Of course, every Thursday we stream the Second Opinion with Dr. Ebony Jade Hilton. So you'll see that coming up next right here on the network. And also, don't forget, folks, tomorrow I'm broadcasting live in Montgomery, Alabama. All roads lead to the south. We'll be live on Saturday in Selma at 10 a.m. Eastern. Then we'll be live from Montgomery at 1 p.m. Eastern. Amazing lineup of speakers are going to be there. And so we are providing the coverage, and we'll be streaming this on at least 50 other platforms of other folks as well. And so we want this to be one of the largest mobilizations ever. The whole goal of what takes place on a Saturday is to kick off Freedom Summer 2026, because we want to send a signal to these white conservative evangelical MAGA Republicans that if you want to take out black political power, we're going to take you out. And our goal is to have the largest black voter mobilization since the 1965 Voting Rights Act. So, folks, that's it. I'll see y'all tomorrow. Holla!